So we're going to move away from the file API and we're going to look into storage. And there's two main methods that are used when it comes to PhoneGap applications and storage. One is to use the Web SQL database, which is basically a client-side database where you can make SQL calls, selects and inserts and stuff like that. And we will look into that. But I want to focus on the other storage method, which is using the HTML5 local storage API. There's local storage and there's session storage, and the only difference is that session storage, whatever is stored is closed out and deleted if you close your browser, because you're closing the session. Local storage will actually stay there until you manually delete it. So that's what we'll be dealing with in this section. And if you go to the storage documentation, there's a lot. It starts out with the database, the Open Database API, doing all that, and we will get to that probably in the next section, but I want to go down to local storage, which is right here. Alright, so provides access to the W3C's web storage interface. And it's pretty easy. You can see the methods here. We have, now things are stored in keys and values. So key returns the name of a key at the specified position. So for instance, if we had a name stored, a key might be first name, the value would be Fred or whatever the name is. Get item returns the item identified by the specific key, so we can get items that are stored. Set items assigns a keyed item's value. So that's how you can save strings with set item, because everything's treated as a string with local storage. There's no typecasting. Remove item will delete the set item, and clear will remove all items or all key value pairs. And there is an example in the documentation, but it's not much. Basically just shows us how to set and get. I want to do an application that's a little more deeper. I want to have a form. We'll build a mini task manager where we'll have a form and we can enter tasks, and it will dynamically display on the bottom of the page, and we'll do it asynchronously so that there's no page refreshes. You just click it and it stores it, and we'll make it so that you can actually exit the application and go back in and your tasks will still be there. And we'll also have a clear button which will clear all the tasks out. So it's not a huge application, but it's a little more in depth than this here. So let's get into it. And it's actually not a lot of code at all. So here I have our index.html, just the shell, the HTML, and our on-device ready function. And we're going to use jQuery mobile. I figured we could just use that from now on because we just have the jQuery file, we have the jQuery mobile file, and then we have the jQuery mobile CSS file for the theme. So our applications will look a little better. We have our standard config file, which hasn't changed at all. So I think we should start with the body. And if you watch the last section, then you know that in jQuery mobile, everything, the sections are split according to the data role attribute. So let's create a page data role. So we're going to say data role equals page, and then we'll have a header. So div data role equals header, and let's see, in that header we'll just put an h2 tag, and we'll say add task. It's going to be just a one-page app. So now we need a main body, so we're going to say div data role content. And let's go down here and create a footer. So div data role footer. And we'll just put a copyright. Okay. So let's save that. Make sure CSS is working, which it's not. Oh, the same thing as last episode. We forgot we're using the minified version, so we need to add that min. Alright. Let's see. There should actually be some padding on that footer. Let me just check this out. Div data role equals footer. Usually there's padding on that. I don't know. Oh, well, yeah, we should put this in something. Like an H4 tag. Alright, so there's our padding. So the next thing we want to do, we're going to have a couple different functions here. The first being, well, actually, let's put in our form elements. We can't forget that. So we're just going to put in an input, text input. So we'll say input, and we'll give it an ID of task input. It's going to be type text. And the value, we don't need a value, it's going to be blank. We want a placeholder. And placeholder is just the initial wording that you want. So we're just going to say add task. Alright, so there's that. Next we need a button. So we'll say button, and I want to give this an ID of add. And the button will say add task. Alright, so now we need a line break, and we want another button. But this one is actually going to have an event handler of not on click, and that's going to call the function clear all. So we'll have to create that. Alright, so let's put in another line break. And here we want an unordered list with the ID of tasks. So this is where we're going to dynamically insert all of our tasks. So that's it for the HTML. And the first thing we're going to do is we want to be able to type in, well, first of all, let's take a look at it. And you can see it's a lot better looking than our past small applications. Now, the first thing we want to do is to be able to type something in, and we want that to add to local storage. We want a key and a value. Now, we're going to be creating items on the fly, so we need something to use as a key. So what I came up with was just to use the timestamp or the date as the key, and then just have the task as the value, and we're just going to display the values. So we'll get to that. The first thing we need to do is we want to use jQuery to bind a click event to that button, to the add task button. So right here under device on device ready, we want to use jQuery, so we need the whole document to be loaded. So we need to say document.ready, and inside that ready method, we want to have a self-calling function, and in here is where we can put our jQuery, and we can grab it. We can grab that button with a selector, and it's a button, and it had the ID of add. So this will grab that button for us. And what we want to do is we want a click event, and we could do click, but we're going to do bind instead. And that just takes a parameter of click and then a function. And in here is what we want to happen when the button's clicked. Now we want to stop the button from actually doing anything except this. We don't want it to submit a form or anything like that. So we can use an event parameter here, and we're just going to say E, which stands for event, prevent default. And that'll just stop it from doing anything aside from what we're going to tell it to do. Now let's just test it out by just saying alert, it works. So let's save that, and let's reload and click this, and we get an alert. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to grab whatever's typed in there, and we can do that using a selector. Now we can see the input is named, the ID is task input, so that's how we can grab this input. So let's see, let's create a variable called task, and we'll set it to equal whatever is in there. So we can grab it with, that needs to be a pound for a hash for an ID, and it's going to be equal to task input dot val. The dot val is very important because that's going to be the text, okay, the text, whatever we type in, as opposed to just the object. So now we have the task in a variable. So let's try to alert the task. Oh, sorry about that. So let's go back and reload, and we'll just say something, and you can see it's now displaying whatever we type. So that's good that we're getting that value. So let's get rid of the alert, and what do we want to do with that? Let's pass that. Actually, let's do a console log. I haven't been doing this that much this series, but I like to log our events in the console. So we can just say console log task entered. So then we can actually have the console running. When we type something in, you can see down here task entered, and this is really good for debugging. You can pinpoint where the error is by using console logs like this. So the last thing we want to do here is just pass the task to a new function, and that's going to be called add task. Okay, so let's create that. That's going to take a task as a parameter, and let's add in a console log. We'll say adding task, and alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use a date. We're going to use the date timestamp as the key, and then the task as the value. So to do that, we need to create a variable called new date, and that's going to be equal to a new date object, and then another variable is going to be equal to task ID, and task ID is going to be equal to new date dot get time. So this is going to be the key. The key is going to be the task ID, which is going to be equal to new date dot get time. So it's just going to be a string, a time string. So now we need to set the item. And when you're dealing with local storage in HTML5, you have a 5 megabyte allocation. So if you go over that, then things aren't going to work right. So we're going to do a try catch block, and we're going to try to set the item, and as long as the quota or the allocation isn't exceeded, then it'll set the item. So let me just show you. We'll do try, and here we want to do a catch, and inside catch we want an event parameter. Alright, so what we're going to do, what we're going to attempt is to set the item, and this is very easy. We just say local storage dot set item, and we're just going to set, remember this is a key value pair, so the key is going to be the task ID and the value is going to be the task. So if there's enough storage for us to do this, then all will be well. If not, then we need to do something. So we're going to say if E is equal to quota exceeded error, then we need to do something. We'll just alert you have no space. Alright, so for a simple application like this, we're most likely not going to exceed the quota. It's just simple sentences and text strings where we're more than likely not going to go over the data, but the quota, but it's good to have in there. So that's pretty much it. We just want to call the get tasks function that we're going to do next. Okay, so that's all. That looks good. So now we want to do function get tasks. Now when the page loads, we need to run this, because this is the function that's going to get the items that we already have set and display them on the screen. So we're going to say body on load equals get tasks. That way it'll run when the page loads. So let's start with declaring a variable. It's going to be an output variable, so I'm going to call it output, and I'm just going to set that equal to nothing. And now we need to create a loop, so we're going to say for, and this loop is just checking to see if we have any items. So we're going to say variable I is equal to 0, and we're going to say as long as I is less than local storage dot length, then well, we want to increment, and then as long as there are still items in there, that's what this local storage dot length is, then we want to add to the output variable. So we want to say output, and then we want to append onto the variable. So we want to do plus equals, and we want to put our output here, and this is an unordered list. Where is it? ULID tasks. It's an unordered list. We want to append list items. All right, so we're going to, where are we? We're going to put some list tags, and we're going to concatenate on local storage dot get item, and inside get item we want to put local storage dot key I. So this will represent the iteration, or the value, not the value but the place of the item. And then from there we just want to concatenate on the end list tag, and that should be good. Let me just double check. It's that. Alright, that looks good. So now let's break out of the loop, and now what we need to do is just insert this output, and we're going to insert this into here, this unordered list with the ID of tasks. So we can grab that with some jQuery tasks, and we would just want to use the .html method. HTML is just pretty much like inner HTML in JavaScript, and we're just going to put in the output. Okay, so let's save that, and let's go ahead and try this out. Cross our fingers. Alright, so we'll just say test 1. Alright, so something's not, it's saying uncaught reference error, get tasks is not defined. And I see the issue right away. We have get tasks with an underscore here. We shouldn't have that. This should be a capital T. So let's try that again. We'll say test 1. Whoa. Alright, well, it did put something in. Oh, you know what? This is from testing I did before. So let's see if, well, we can't clear the tasks. Let's just try to add something else. We'll just say something. Alright, so it's working. We don't have our clear method yet, so we can't really clear it, but it is working, and we can actually see all of our key value pairs if we look in resources and in local storage right here. These are all this is our storage. This is the key, which is the time string, and then the values. And this here, this time and this Ripple last load, this is only occurring because we're in Ripple. So you can completely ignore this line here. Just pretend it's not there, because it only has to do with Ripple. This isn't going to show when you're on your device. So that's working. Now what we need to do is create the clear tasks, because right now we can't get rid of any. So let's go back, and we're just going to create a function called clear all, and we can use local storage dot clear. So that's easy enough. That's going to clear it, but if we leave it as is, we're going to need to reload the page to see it clear. So what we want to do is take that tasks ID, and we want to set the HTML to nothing. And finally, we want to return false, because we don't want the button to do anything except this function. So it'll stop here. Alright, so that looks good. Let's save that and reload. And let's test. Okay, so it's not displaying our... Let me just see something here. Alright, so the get items function is only being run when we click add task. So there's something up. You can see it gets run when we click add task. It should be loading. Oh, we did the same thing with the body. So this should say get tasks. Small error. So if we reload, now we see all the tasks. So let's clear them. See that? We cleared them right out, and you can see down here there's no more tasks. So let's just say pick up kids. Okay. Work meeting. Very cool. And it's not even showing that time string anymore. So we can actually style this a little better very easily with jQuery Mobile. What we want to do is go into the UL, and we want to put a data role, and that's going to be equal to list view. Now if we save that and we reload, we don't see it happen, and that's because we're dynamically generating the HTML in the JavaScript. So we just have to add one line of code, and that's going to be in the get tasks. So the last line here, we're going to say tasks dot list view, and we want to put in refresh. So now let's go back and take a look. Now you can see our tasks are now formatted nicely, and like I said, ignore this. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's not, just because we're in Ripple, so you can ignore that. So that's it. You can see down here too our local storage. Next we'll be dealing with databases. You can see over here we have this web SQL, so we can actually create client-side databases, and we can basically do the same thing. But first I want to upload this to our repository and publish it, and I want to install it on my device so I can show you how it works. So let's do that. Let's say git add all, git commit, Alright, so now we got to go to phone build, or build, whatever it's called, and click update code, pull latest. And this is an actual application that you could use. You could keep on your phone and just use for a simple task list. And you can say that you built it. Feel free to add on to it, use your own logo, whatever. It's yours. Alright, so I'm going to grab the APK. And downloads. Now I can go on, log into my device. You can actually put the APK anywhere if you're going to use the APK installer, but I like to put it in the Android folder, so I'll delete the old one. Alright, so it's all set to be installed. So I will make another video showing you how it works on the actual device.